what this is. It's a list of my favorite books. Last year was a good year. I read 82 books, a lot of them non-fiction and a lot of them fiction. A lot of them were just enjoyable books. At the moment that I read them, I was like, yeah, that's my favorite book. And then in a few weeks, I forgot about them. But I managed to find 8 books that I didn't really need to find them because they were, and they are, truly my favorites. I just remembered that I read them. These 8 books that I'm going to talk about are the books that I have not forgotten that I've read. Others, I just don't really remember, so I can't really put them into my favorites. So there are 8 books on this list. I'll start with the 8th, like the least favorite, and go up to the first best favorite, which really is. The first 2 are just, interchangeable, kind of, almost. Okay, I'm just gonna say what I look in books when I made this list and when I'm reading is good prose, intricate characters, character relationships, good prose, writing. I need my writing to be good. I need my books to be super intelligent and complex. That's all. Mostly this year and past year I've been reading fantasy science fiction, so this will reflect in my list, and that's all I need to say. Now let's start with number 8, Steven Erikson book, The Gardens of the Moon, right? Yes. Gardens of the Moon, I read last year somewhere towards the end, I don't remember. It took me a few months, so this is why it's on number 8 place, because it's like, this book is hugely just a setup book. We have a lot of characters. There are some that I really care about, and I hope they will get their own books. The world building is really intricate. The thing that I like most about this book is that Steven Erikson doesn't really tell you anything. He lets you into his world, and he's like, take a look. Figure things out for yourself. And I appreciate that in books. When authors explain things too much, or explain things in general, I have this uncanny ability to think like the author and then figure out things that will happen, because I'm thinking like, okay, so if this is happening, the author would probably do this, this, and this to make this book interesting, and this is how I guess things. So in Gardens of the Moon, there is no guessing. There's just like, it's just you and this huge world, this huge magical system, the cast of endless characters. And you're just there and you're just reading and you're just figuring things out. I really like that. The reason it's not like number 1 favorite, as I said, is because this book is hugely a setup, and it's really hard to put one book of a huge series as a favorite, because one series is kind of like a one book, in my opinion, like a one whole story, and this is just a fraction of a story. But I do have belief in this story. This is why the book ended up in this list. Now I will say that Topper is my favorite character for now. He only appeared for a small fraction of the time, but I think he will be a bigger influence in the following books. The magical system, there are some warrens there, like you go through dimensions and like there are gods there. If you don't know this about me, and I didn't even know this about me, but I like when there's gods in books, gods or theology, like some kind of religious thing aspect. I will love that book and I will want to read it. We have god beings in this one, so I'm very excited to continue with the series. I think the prose is very militaristic, with the dashes of poetic inspiration. Oh, another thing that I wanted to say, it's very intelligent. Like this book, just you see that the author knew what he was talking about, especially, military strategy and all of that. And I'm not saying that I really know much about military strategy, but to a layperson's perspective, it seemed like a really solid planning done by the characters, as well as those who don't know anything about military. They were like intelligent in other ways. So there's a lot of intelligent characters, which thankfully, not thankfully, but I thank the book for them, because I cannot with the average / dumb characters, and this book has smarts. It has smarts, which is the most important thing besides writing. Yes. Okay, let me just see in my notebook what I wrote as the 7th book of the list. Yeah. So the 7th book is the only nonfiction on this list. The reason being, I did not include the academic graduate school nonfiction books because that doesn't make any sense, but I have read a few, like, on the side, and one of these is The Art of Fiction by John Gardner. This book Well, I had it in my head that I'm gonna write a book and I want to know more about the grammar and the aesthetics of writing, and I still do think that I can write a book, one day, maybe, hopefully. But anyway, out of the numerous books that I've read last year and this year about writing, John Gardner's book, The Fiction of Writing, is top tier. It's incredible. It is snarky. It is kind of, those people, especially people who write about writing, they're mostly so idiotically unbearable. I don't have the words, but if you've read those books, you know what I mean. They're so not funny and kind of they look down on the reader. But John Gardner does look down on the reader, but he's got this intelligence and he really knows what he's talking about. So it's like you forgive him because he's also funny and he actually knows what he's talking about. His advice is one of the best advice, the best writing book after George Orwell's On Writing. It is John Gardner's fiction. What is it called? The Art of Fiction. It's focusing mostly on grammar and on making your sentences look pretty, making your sentences flow. There's some other things there as well. Overall, I just recommend it. And if you are interested in writing, if you're interested in the English language, The Art of Fiction is a complete gem, as opposed to the fractured gem. Number 7 on this list is a complete surprise. This is, I think, the most surprising book that I've read this year because I did not find it in any type of reading list. I did not find it from the recommendations of friends. I was literally in a bookshop and I took the book, I liked the cover, I opened up the page, I read the first page, I read the short summary, and I was like, I'm gonna buy this book. I did not look at the Goodreads, I never read anything from the author, a complete and utter surprise. And I think books that are surprising to me as a reader just have this higher standing in my brain because every book that I enter is just, fraught with expectations. This one, it was just a clear, clean slate and I dove into it. Well, anyway, it's The Raven Tower by Ann Leckie. I have it here somewhere. This is a fantasy standalone, and this is also why I liked it because I don't know. I read it in a period of last year when I was like, I don't want to start anything new. I just want something easier. I just want something to be done. And so I read this book in like 2 days, and it was done. And I think this also brought to my enjoyment of it because it's a standalone, but it's not really the biggest reason. The biggest reason is because it's just smart. It's completely and utterly smart. Every sentence, every word has its place. The prose is so sharp and fixed. I don't know how to explain it. It's like you can see that Ann Leckie literally watched out for every goddamn word, comma, full stop. And she was like, this has to be here. It's just, the writing style is great, amazing. Besides that, we have the main character, our protagonist, who is a trans man, Eolo, and we have another perspective from a god. And so we're following Eolo's perspective as he's coming into this town with his friend the prince and the prince's father the king. There's some court intrigue there. There's this evil uncle who wants to take over the town and stuff. Then we have this god who has been living for millennia and millennium, I don't know the words, but anyway, for a long time. And there, the god's perspective is in the second point of view, is like he's speaking to Eola and he's starting this narrative basically telling Eolo when he noticed him and how it all began. We at the beginning right away get the sense of this is a huge story. This is every small detail matters in the climax to come. It does not disappoint. In the end, everything connects so beautifully. Musings of the god, his thoughts about the universe. It's a fantasy, but it does mention the universe and the stars and the existence. Very, very intelligent, very poetic, but sharp. I already mentioned sharp. I don't know exactly what I mean by it, but it just feels right to say sharp. This book is very sharp. and I do recommend it. And I'm sorry that I put so much expectation for this book, because I think it's the best way to enter it is to just, clear-minded and just, just if you want to be in for a ride, go for this one. Very, very intelligent. Now, the next book, you may consider it to be cheating to mention, because it's a reread. But in my defense, the first time that I read it, I gave it 3 stars. I was like, I don't get it. I don't get why people give it 5 stars. I'm like, it's a good book. It's nothing special. And its fame, last year especially, when it blew up all over the internet, just made me want to reread it. And I reread it because of it, because it was everywhere. And I was like, maybe I just read it at the wrong time. And this time around, I gave it 5 stars. And I was like, yeah. When they say that some books just need to be read at a certain time or period in your life, they're telling the truth. And the book I'm talking about is, okay, there are the lights in there, so I'm not gonna touch it, but it's this beautiful edition. I need to touch it. I just need to touch it. Okay. It's Madeline Miller's The Song of Achilles. And the most stupidest, insane thing that I did is when I was gonna read it, I was so certain I'm gonna like it the second time around that I literally bought this 10-year anniversary edition, which was not that cheap, And I was like, yeah, I'm definitely gonna like it. I made so many mistakes by buying books that ended up not really being my thing, and I bought a lot of special editions of books that I haven't read. Finally, it paid off, because this book is amazing. This book is, we all know what The Song of Achilles is. It's Patroclus' perspective about the Achilles' life and their relationship, basically. A myth retelling. The first time around, why didn't I like it? Because Patroclus was just too passive for me, and I went into it expecting something else. I went into it expecting more of a historical account without the, supernatural elements. And I expected it to be more of an epic fantasy style of a story. But this one is very much a quiet story. It's about gods as well as the humans. It has these mythical elements. And most above all, Patroclus is very passive. The second time around, I was expecting, so I didn't mind. And it kind of made sense, because he's the type of person. The other thing that I really didn't like the first time around, the second time around, was just flowing, and the beauty of it is that every chapter feels like a sort of a short story or vignette. This book is made of vignettes of small encounters and situations between Patroclus and Achilles. It's more of a just gathering of the brightest, reddest apples throughout many years of their knowing each other and being in a relationship. I most loved the prose. The first time around, I wasn't really concentrating on the writing. I was just like, give me the story, give me the boom, 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 give me the plot, the action. I changed as a reader, and I don't really care about reading the fast-paced books anymore as much as I care about the beautiful sentence. The metaphors in this book are out of this world. They're so unique. After reading this book, I just noticed these ordinary, stupid, repetitive metaphors in other books so much. This book ruined me for every other book, for every other prose. The thing that I liked most, though, besides the prose, is just where this is going. You know how agonizingly sad the ending is, and as we are approaching step by step, it's like this countdown, and it's like there's so many beautiful moments in this book, and then it's all contrasted with the fact of the ending, which you know the ending, and every moment is tainted with the ending. Every moment is tainted with their fate, which we, the readers, know, and they do not. This is a tragedy. It's a tragedy in its most pure, wonderful, beautiful form. I love it. And yes, I will definitely be rereading it for the 3rd time in the future, because, it's just wonderful. Okay, we're already on the 4th book. And the fourth book is actually 3 books in one, because originally it was like a one story. I think you already know what I'm talking about. Yes, I think I'm the last person that hasn't read yet The Lord of the Rings. I have read it last year, but it was my first reading of it. I completely broke by the end. Wait. I have it here. I'm doing a British accent now. I don't know why. I think as a foreign person, I can afford it. I don't know what I'm saying. Okay. So we have this beautiful. I don't know why. Why did I take? I don't know. Why did I unveiled? Why did I naked my book? I don't know. This is the edition with 3 books in one, and I read it as one. And I think it's better. It was better for me to read it as one, because the second book was kind of a bit, lower on the scale of goodness than the first and the third. But overall, the story, the writing style, everything. I don't think I need to talk much about the Lord of the Rings. I just want to say that friendships between Sam and Frodo were my favorite part. Frodo is my favorite character. The ending literally broke me. I cried, and I reached the catharsis that we all so seek in book reading. That's why I love it. After that, okay, this is now a thing that you can comment in the comments if you have a strong opinion about. But after reading this, I rewatched the movies, but for the first time I watched the extended versions, which I've never seen before. And I just thought they were too long, and I just actually prefer the normal versions to the extended ones. I don't know if this is like a opinion, a bad opinion, or a good opinion. Is this a popular or unpopular opinion? I don't know. So if you have a strong opinion about that, tell me. I want to know. Anyway, this book is just almost perfect. The last part with the hobbits returning to Shire, I was just like, I don't really care anymore. The story is over. But other than that, great story. Very classical feel to it, because it is classical. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. I'll just shut up now. The third book on this list has the most relatable character in all of fiction that I've read up until this point in my entire life. And it's the Murderbot series by Martha Wells. I can say like the whole series is on the third place, but the first book, All Systems Red, is by far my favorite, because it introduces Murderbot in such a relatable and way. You immediately know who Murderbot is, what it wants. This Murderbot is basically a robot made to protect humans and to fight and battle the bad aliens and other humans and all of the natural disasters. All it wants is to be left alone. All it wants is to watch their TV shows and just do not communicate with people, any sort of people. It just wants to be left alone. Now, what compels me so much about Murderbot, besides watching TV shows all of the time and then really reminding me of me when I was in high school, is there's a lot of trauma. It's a humanoid robot, right? It does not have emotion, it can do whatever you want, and then humans use it a lot of the times. And so it's just like watching TV shows in the background as it does tasks for humans whom it does not really like at all. And its story starts from there. We see the Murderbot's escape, how fortunes change, and the Murderbot has to communicate with other people. It has to travel, it has to hide, it has to pretend to be a human being. It's absolutely insanely good, because these are novellas and they're so packed, they're so fast-paced, but at the same time, the compelling voice of the Murderbot is what drives the story forward. And I love just listening to it speak, and it really feels like I'm talking to a friend or even myself sometimes. I think if you like this book if you spend like your high school years watching BBC Merlin and reading fanfiction. Okay, we've come to the number 2, which can also be number 1 place in my list. These 2 last books are interchangeable. Number 2 is Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. If Murderbot is the most relatable character, Fitz in these books is one of my favorite characters in fiction. He suffers so much. These books are The prose is like George R.R. Martin. Very, very, very high quality. The plot is, well, a lot of people call it quiet. I would call it subtly loud. There's a lot of court intrigues. Fitz is an orphan, he comes to the court, he begins his training as an assassin, and there's a lot of intrigue that he has to deal with. The most important thing, the thing that I find most enjoyable, is the fact that he deals with all of the obstacles he comes into contact with so intelligently. You can see that he's smart, you can see that the author is smart. Relationships, connections, world building, everything is just top tier. I have nothing bad to say about this book. Okay, I could dig up something, but overall, these books just left such a good impression on me, and I want to reread them. I almost reread the first one as soon as I read it the first time around. I ever since read these original trilogy. I'm now in the middle of the second book of the Trade Ship Traders series trilogy, and I will be reading the full trilogy after it. The Fool, okay, the Fitz. I said the Fitz is one of my favorite characters, but the Fool is just like also one of my favorite characters. If you like characters, if you like following someone through a lot of hardships and trauma, I think you will like the Assassin's Apprentice like book and trilogy and everything. Robin Hobb as a storyteller, as an author, absolutely phenomenal. Honestly, these books are so readable, and I don't normally say this of books because that's not really a compliment for me. It's like I want to trod through a book, I want to dig through it, I want to be, chained by stuff. When I say these books are readable, I mean that they just sweep you away in its prose and characters and introspections without making it seem as they're shallow or fast-paced or whatever. I think the more we reach the best book of the year, the less I can say about it because I'm missing words to express my love for these books. And then the biggest tragedy that's ever befallen me is the fact that I don't have the best book of the year. I don't have it in the physical copy. I read it through NetGalley before it came out because I was just so f***ing excited for it. I have the first 3 books here, and I reread the first book last year because for the past 5 years it's been on my top #1 favorite book. If you ask me what my favorite book is of all of the books that I've ever read, I will tell you with no hesitation, it's To Like Lightning by Ada Palmer. That's my favorite book. This is my favorite book. No questions, no answers, or the answer. This is the answer. I've reread it last year. Then I read the second and the third. Absolutely phenomenal. And then I realized that the fourth one and the last one in this quartet was coming out in the October. And so I just went to NetGalley, just to see if it's maybe, available. It was. I got approved. It was my first book that I got approved on NetGalley. And I was so happy, and I read like the 600-700 page book in like a few days because, wow. Now, I'm gonna say that these 4 books, are the most intelligent, complex, poetic, philosophical, theological, political, economical, mythical books I have ever read in my entire life. These books discuss both philosophy and art in such a companionable balance. There is no words to express my feelings. It's a science fiction with supernatural elements. It's a book of ideas. It's a book of discussions. It's a book with such a compelling narrator. Mycroft, his name is. I adore him. Mycroft is a murderer. He's a criminal. He's a psychopath. At the same time, he's just the most gentle soul. He's intelligent. He's the most intelligent out of all of them. He is a special character that I just cannot seem to forget. Whatever I'm doing, whatever I'm reading, he's always at the back of my head. Besides which, other characters. There's such diversity. Also themes of gender and sexuality, themes of war and peace, themes of gods and ends. There is, again, it's very hard to express this book because it has so many ideas, it has so many thought-provoking, and I know it sounds so like lame, oh, it's thought-provoking, it's smart. It is. I don't know how else to explain it. It's like, okay, I know all of the books up until this point that I thought were smart or thought-provoking, these words have come to mean nothing in relation to those books after I've read To Like Lightning and the 3 subsequent books. That's all I have to say. If you like intelligence, if you really look for good prose, not just good prose, but like actual ideas, actual philosophy, not just like abstract thinking, but the actual references to philosophers, to history, to political theories, war theories, myths, literature, everything. The Ada Palmer is a historian, and it really shows in these books. I hesitate to call this literature because it's not just literature, it really transcends the genre for me. I just sound so pompous, or what is the word, when I speak like this, but I don't know what else to say. This is one of those books where you're thrown into the world, the same as with Gardens of the Moon. Nothing is explained. The first time that I read this book, I was so freaking lost. I was going back and forth. I was looking at the list, the freaking list that got stolen. Who is who? I was lost and I loved it. So if you like being lost in books, if you like trotting to them and exploring and finding out things for yourself, if you're interested in philosophy, in the classical philosophers, the theories, the political theories, Hobbes, the Leviathan, stuff like that. And now I'm gonna just say, I've never read Hobbes, I've never read the classical philosophers much. I have an interest in them, and I want to read them. But even as a layperson, as someone who doesn't really know all that much about these people or their theoretical frameworks, whatever, this book actually explained it pretty well. And I'm sure there's so many things in there that I missed, and that's why I'll be rereading it once again and again and again and again as I'm going through the coursework this book set out for me. But anyway, as a person who hasn't read them, I understood this book and I loved it. So don't be like afraid to read it if it sounds like boring or hard to read, because it's really not. I don't know where my monologue is going, but please read this book. That's all I wanna know. That's all I wanna say. Just read this book. Now that we've come to the end of this video, I'm just gonna treat you to the 4 books that I wanna mention as like very enjoyable books that have not quite made it to my list of favorites. And I haven't mentioned them at the beginning because I think it would reflect badly on my actual list, because they're the books that I love despite the genres they're in, or despite of what they are, not for what they are. And you will see why, because the first one is The Love Hypothesis, which is a romance. I don't read romances, I don't like romances. I read this one because it was a period where I just could not read or concentrate on anything, so I was like, let's read a romance, something easy, something very readable. Again, I just don't like this expression, but it was readable. I read it very quickly, and I don't really like the ending and things that happened at the end, basically. But overall, it was a really fun book, and I do recommend it. The second one I want to mention is Saga Volume 9. I finally read it, the last volume so far that's out. It broke my fracking heart. And I'm not sure, I haven't put it on my favorites list because I'm not sure whether I love it because it's sad, or because of other reasons. Because if you ask me now what happened in this volume, I have no idea. I just know the ending, and I know that it broke my fracking heart. Fracking, what the is that? I don't know. So Saga, Volume 9. The next one is Winter's Orbit by Everina Maxwell. A book I had so much trouble with, because first time I read it, I gave it 2 stars. The first 30% of the book are like 5-star, awesome, I love it. The next 60% of the book are like 1 or 2 stars. I don't know what happened. However, I have not been able to stop thinking about them, so what the hell? I'm just gonna put them here in this video, so if you're interested in a queer science fiction, I think it's young adult, or if it's not, it really reads like a young adult, but anyway, it's really readable, again that word, really fun, and first 40% are insanely good. So now, lastly, we have a spiritual book that literally changed my life. I read it twice already. I will read it for the third time, and it's The Sculptor in the Sky by Teal Swan. I like Teal Swan. I watch her YouTube videos all the time. She's a spiritualist. She has spiritual theories. She talks about the word manifestation. Yes, manifestation. She talks about manifestation and all of that stuff. So if you're interested, The Sculptor in the Sky is very, well, I won't say very high quality, but it's like a solid book. It has some solid ideas. There are some errors in there, but whatever. Anyway, I liked it, and it really changed the way I think about life, which is always a nice thing. Well, not always a nice thing, but a necessary one. So thank you for sticking with this video. I hope you found some books that you wanna read, and that you will read. If you have read any of these books, please comment in the comment section and tell me what you thought about them. I really do wish to talk about them. And if you know any of the books that strike you as similar to this list, give me recommendations. I'm always in search of intelligent, especially intelligent science fiction fantasy, like and especially irrational fantasy and science fiction, like, for example, Harry Potter and the Methods of Rationality. I'm just saying, I know it's a fan fiction, but like, I like these books. Okay, so thank you, and I'll see you in one of my next videos. Maybe I make them quite soon after this one, maybe not.